Well, it says I'm live and I can hear myself. I'm going to just check the settings so that I don't wind up in the kind of crazy netherworld I wound up in the last time I tried this business. Anyway, hang tight for just a sec. I just want to see if this thing is recording audio, and it says it is, so I suppose it is. And it says, it's, distributing said audio, so that's great. So anyway, for those of you who may be watching, those of you who don't have better sense than to watch this stuff and are over helping Hivesci celebrate her 40th birthday today, which she's doing. Hey, guys. Hey, Kata. Hey, Maya. Anyway, thanks for coming. Um, this is this is kind of a weird thing because, geez, our pal, um, Rationality Rules has apparently decided that he's taken enough time out of the milieu of the gender wars, and well, decided it was time to get back in. So maybe that's because of the recent popularity of everybody's got something to say, right? I don't know. Uh, but anyway, uh, Stephen actually does a lot of good things, very spot on in terms of some stuff, but it's not a huge but it's one of the things that trans people notice all the time when cis people decide it's a good idea to start commenting on the whole thing. Um, just there's a certain je ne sais quoi of tone deafness that can pop up when it comes down to brass tacks. So I want to go through some of the stuff that Stephen said, the good stuff first, because I do want to give him credit. I do want to give him credit because he clearly wants badly to be thought well of. So let's see if I can figure out the. Oh, wait a second. I've got this. I don't want to be watching myself, so I got to close that business down. Uh. Yeah. So let's just start with this a little bit. Share screen. Which one? I think it's this one. Let's see. No, it's not that one. Stop sharing. No, I don't want to share that one. It's someday I'll figure this crap out. Yeah, it's this one. No, it's not that one. Damn it. It's this one. And Insight is, and oh, by the way, the title of the Stephen stream is, "Does Piers Morgan have the right definition of a woman?" I won't give away the ending from Stephen's point of view, but let's see if this works. Can you all see this? Yes, no, maybe. I need to know. People in the chat, let me know. Can you all see Steven's this screen? I don't think I am sharing it. Okay. All right. Hang on. Oh, the phone. I'm so bad at this. So bad at this. Present. Share screen. Share. Not that one. Share this tab instead. Okay, let's try it again.
In this video, and indeed this series, by letting everyone know where I stand. So to be clear, I'm not going to exhaustively defend my views in this video, nor my reasoning. That will come throughout the series. Rather, my aim here is to set the stage, and this includes letting you know where I'm at. The first thing I want to say is that creating content debating the validity of trans people feels fundamentally wrong to me. It's comparable to debating the existence of atheists or homosexuals. Romans 1:20 states God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen. And Christians have, and in many cases still do, employ this verse to accuse atheists of lying about their disbelief. Hence, per this assertion, atheists don't really exist. We're merely suppressing the truth. Similarly, arguments have been made suggesting that homosexuality is unnatural, a mental disease even, rather than recognizing it as a form of love. Hence, per this assertion, homosexuals don't really exist. Rather, homosexuals are corrupted heterosexuals. Now, as far as I'm convinced, we are more than less in the midst of observing the same fight, the same bullshit in relation to trans people. For the reasons and arguments I'll provide in the coming episodes, I think it's really obvious that, as they say, trans people exist. That is, that their experiences and identities are real and valid. But due to our time in history, I'm having to debate the topic. This is where the current dialectic is.
You know, you really don't have to, but
And I've got to meet it where it's at. If I lived a few decades back, I would have engaged similarly on the homosexual debate, and a few decades further back still on the women's rights debate. Outside of violence, cold rational debate is a crucial way that societal issues move forward. And if we wish to avoid violence, and we should, then we need to allow the debate to occur. So there's a brief statement on why I'm addressing this fight in the way that I am. Throughout this series, I will delve into philosophical, biological, and sociological perspectives, and I will do my best to illuminate the complexities of each area of discourse, all while presenting the arguments and counter-arguments with as much fairness and respect as I can. But talking of respect, let's not forget that at the heart of this debate are real people with real lives.
and that is something I wish more people would actually say from the get-go. I really respect Stephen for saying that. I really do. We can we can have a back and forth in all of this, and we can put uh, put each other on a fire hose at the end of a fire hose if we want to, but we shouldn't be doing. And I don't intend to be doing that tonight uh, with this clip. You know, y'all should go and watch his whole thing. It's a little disturbing that there's a whole fucking series uh, planned. Um, but that's okay. I mean, people do have a right to um, opine on the issue, but it's getting to the point where it's the issue du jour every jour. You know, it's. I wish I could remember my French properly. Toujours, toujours, toujours l'amour. But anyway, credit to uh, Rationality Rules for saying this.
As we move forward, I urge everyone to approach this topic with an open mind and compassionate heart. Remember, we're not just debating abstract concepts here, we're discussing people's lives, and that is something that we should never take lightly.
Indeed. So let's stop sharing that tab. Close that tab so I don't fuck up. So yeah, um, golly gee, I seem to have unframed myself in everything here. Jesus, that's better. There, I'm in frame, picture, that thing. Anyway, so that's good. That's a nice start. Anyway, let's approach this issue with a sense of human decency, a sense of charity, a sense of I don't know. I wish more people would approach it with a sense of humor, but either way. So this is the next bit where Stephen answers his question. Does Piers Morgan have it right or not? And I seem to have gone out of focus, which is like one of the crazy things that I don't know happens every now and again. Let me see if I can be back in focus. All kinds of crazy. See, this is why Steven has 300,000 followers and I don't. Let's see if I can. Yeah, that's better. Apply. And now everything will go crazy probably. But no, it's all good. Yeah. So let's share the next little clip. Present harms. Or not so much harms. Share screen. Does Piers Morgan have the right definition? I think this is the one. Share. All right. So now I got to go over to the does Piers Morgan have the right definition? No, that's not it. That's it. I like it that he got clipped Judas Butler here. Not so happy about Ben. Come on. You betcha. What? Uh-huh. And Doc Stock not too happy. And then fuck you. Guess what? I'm a female, according to Pierce. That's great. Anyway, yikes. You can't see it or hear it? Oh, shit. Damn it. It says it's sharing. stupid thing. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Hold on.
The
Share this
study of
tab
knowledge.
instead, and I'll stop the guy and go back to the beginning of this because it's pretty good. And I want to be sure that you get the good stuff. Okay.
You know, in my view, everybody has a theory of gender. And what I mean by
This is
that
the
is
Judith
that everybody
Butler,
has
good part.
certain assumptions going about what gender is or should be.
Well, I mean, a woman is whatever J.K. Rowling says a woman is. And she's right. A woman is a biological human female.
A woman is someone who defines as a woman, period, done.
A woman is a female, and the female is defined by the genes she has, essentially.
A woman, by definition, is an adult human female. A man is an adult human male.
For me, a woman is someone who is an adult, who is human, and is female. And female is both a biological category, where we're talking about biological sex, and a gender category. So depending on what we're talking about, if you're saying best female rapper, no one's checking chromosomes. If you're talking about female reproductive health, you know, people aren't just talking about your social life. It can be a biological or a gender category.
So when
the standard categorizations of woman and man relate to sex, and always have, in every natural language.
I'm not going to use preferred pronouns. I'm going to use the pronouns that are accurate.
a woman is an adult female who does not have a penis. I can't even believe I have to say that on air.
I insist that what it is to be a woman, or indeed what it is to be a man or any other gender, is an open-ended question.
All right. So we've just heard some confidently stated definitions pertaining to what it is to be a man or a woman, with the most prominent definition, the one that you'll commonly see in a dictionary no less, being that a woman is an adult human female. In the next episode, I'm going to delve fully into this definition, but before we do this, we need a fundamental understanding of how definitions work. The reason for this, as said earlier, is because when it comes to this debate, the loudest voices know nothing of philosophy, and particularly epistemology, the study of knowledge. And yet, if one is going to argue about what is and isn't the right definition of a word, then they need to, one, understand how.
This is where we get the philosophy bro, and he's good at that. He is good at that. After all, you know, it's like rationality rules. So there you go. Here we go. Keep on. Please continue.
How definitions work, and two, have a consistent framework. To achieve this, though, let's pivot our focus to a term that's less politically charged and emotionally laden. Let's talk about castles. Now, don't worry, we're not about to embark on a dry academic journey. At least, I hope not. We're going to have a bit of fun with this. After all, who doesn't love a good castle? They've been around for millennia, they've featured in countless stories and films, and we've all used the term in conversation at some point. But despite their familiarity, can you provide the definition of a castle? Go on, give it a shot. Define a castle. Alright, I'm just teasing. Defining a castle is actually quite straightforward. According to the Oxford Dictionary of Phrase and Fable, a castle is a large building or group of buildings fortified against attack with thick walls, battlements, towers, and in many cases, a moat.
Just like Portchester Castle! Look at it! It's even got a moat! Well, kind of. That right there, by the way, is where the monk's poop came down outside of the walls.
And yes, I've just made you look up an ancient toilet plumbing. You're welcome. But hey, we've done it. We've defined a castle, and it really wasn't that hard. Hey, Reese.
Hey, Steve. Got a small problem with your definition. It sucks. You see, it doesn't accurately describe quite a few castles, and perhaps worse, it entails that all forts are castles. But they're not. I mean, sure, Portchester Castle here fits your definition, and so too does this one, which is Bodiam Castle. Glorious place, by the way. But this one doesn't, and neither does this. Why has history determined that these are castles when they don't have your thick walls or towers? You need to do better, my friend.
All right, I hear you. I'll come up with another definition, okay? This time I'm going to get it right.
So you see where Stephen is going here. It's like, okay, define a chair. Okay, it's something with 4 legs that you can sit on. And then there's a picture of a horse. There we go. Speaking of Rosinante, maybe a bad horse, but it's a horse, and it's a chair, but it's not. But it's got 4 legs, etc., and so forth. This is a kind of a long trope. He goes through castles and the various definitions, and doesn't work, and all of that kind of stuff, and planets, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Let me just sort of zip along here and get close to the end where he.
I've broadened it to such a degree that I've stripped its utility almost completely, and still failed to be all-inclusive. So learning from this, we need a definition that maximizes utility. That is, a definition that accurately describes an entity so that you, me, and the rest of society have a common understanding. But part of that understanding entails exclusion. It has to. If a definition covers everything and anything, then it doesn't impart any information. It's useless. Okay, so what's the point I'm driving at here? Simply put, definitions aren't as perfect as we often assume. In fact, the only definitions that are truly all-encompassing are those rooted in a priori knowledge, such as mathematics and logic. On the other hand, a posteriori knowledge, such as concepts of castles, mammals, planets, and of course...
This is why I love the philosophy, guys. A priori, a posteriori, and eventually you wind up having things come out of your a posteriori. But
of course, women are based on our current understanding of the world, and thus can change as we discover more information. This is why Pluto was once a planet, but has since been reclassified as a dwarf planet.
Pluto had it coming from the beginning.
In the Knights of Newton, we defined any celestial body that moved through the sky in a way that was different to the background stars as a planet.
Wait. We have Titan Uranus in chat. There's got to be a nod to, celestial bodies somehow.
Planet. The word planet, in fact, comes from the ancient Greek term wanderer, reflecting the way these bodies seem to wander through the constellations of the zodiac. And no, the moon didn't count, because by Newton's time, they knew, like us, that the moon is a big ball of cheese. And no, the sun also didn't count, since it's a giant cosmic campfire, forever roasting marshmallows. Entire civilizations rose and fell according to this definition of a planet. They had a clear understanding and no need to adapt since the utility was all-encompassing. But then, in 2005, we discovered Eris, which is aptly named after the Greco-Roman goddess of...
All right. We get the picture. Now let's get to...
It doesn't have a stomach, it's got a duck bill, electroreception, only one functioning ovary, and it has unique chromosomes, 5 X's and 5 Y's. Oh, and how can we forget? The males have venomous spurs because of course they do, they're an Aussie. But it's still, according to Oxford Languages,
for future reference when we're reviewing Stephen's series, which is not extant yet, but keep in mind that genetics, X's and Y's and all that crap, because he's got a history of being a little bit confused on that, more confused on genetics and biology than he tends to be on philosophy. But there you go.
A mammal. It's a warm-blooded vertebrate animal of a class that is distinguished by the possession of hair or fur, females that secrete milk for the nourishment of the young, and, typically, the birth of live young. Indeed, did you see what happened there? The word typically is allowing for the exceptions. The definition of a mammal, a fundamental category, was changed to accommodate monotremes, and yet civilization didn't crumble. At least,
didn't.
I don't think it has. Tying this all together, definitions are not quite as perfect as the average layperson thinks. They're sufficient enough for us to go about our lives knowing roughly what other people are talking about, but they very rarely actually encapsulate all instances of what they're referring to. And this fact is one of the first things you learn in philosophy. The issue of definitions being hard to attain, let alone perfect, has been known for millennia, as evidenced in the dialogue of Euthyphro, where Socrates roams Athens seeking to define piety. And yes, his attempts to find a singular definition mirrors ours when it comes to castles. There isn't one. Okay, so with this dive into castles, mammals, and planets on the table, let's apply this discourse to gender.
All right. Let's do.
The definition of a woman, like the definition of a castle, is an instance of a posteriori knowledge, knowledge arrived at through experience. Hence, our definitions for both of these concepts are usually sufficient for everyday communication, but they don't encapsulate all instances of the concept they aim to define. And that's okay. The fact that we don't have an all-encompassing definition of a castle doesn't mean that we don't know what a castle is. That's right, we don't need a single exhaustive definition. You know what I mean when I speak about a castle, despite the fact that I can't give you a definition that captures all castles. Further still, we have countless scientific papers and books making reference to castles, with none of them providing a single definition that fits all castles. And yet, the walls of our society haven't come falling down. When it comes to empirical entities, definitions are often not all-encompassing, and that's perfectly acceptable. But if we are to recognize this, and we should, then we can't apply this recognition inconsistently. We can't insist that when it comes to some empirical concepts, we don't need an all-encompassing definition, such as castles, cars, art, mountains, rivers, leaflets, music, health, education, love, prayer, race, beauty, and so on. But when it comes to other empirical concepts, we do need an all-encompassing definition, such as woman. And it's this inconsistency of application that is, by my lights, the root issue with most debates on what constitutes a woman or a man. Those who insist on an all-encompassing definition are playing tennis without the net, since they do not hold the standard for all other empirical definitions. When the likes of Ben Shapiro, Piers Morgan, and Matt Walsh pat themselves on the back because they've pointed out that the left woke people don't have some unifying definition on what is a woman, it's cringe enough. But when they confidently and mockingly insist that they have the correct definition, it's philosophical turbo cringe. It's like insisting that a castle is what J.K. Rowling says a castle is, because evidently J.K. Rowling is an expert on castles, just as she's apparently an expert on sociology. But this isn't only facepalm inducing because they insist that they have the right definition. No, what's more pressing is that their definition of, for instance, a woman being an adult human female simply outsources the definition to two other terms, adult and female.
This is kind of key too.
And yet, both of these terms suffer from
I
many
don't
of the
disagree
same
with
issues
a
that the
single
word
thing
woman and castle do. The
that
cultural
Stephen is
construct of
saying here.
adulthood varies significantly across cultures and has historically been different within just Western civilization. Similarly, the definition of female has evolved significantly over the last 100 years. We once defined it as genitalia, then moved towards chromosomes, and now lean towards gamete type. And FYI, these shifts have contributed to why the majority of philosophers and sociologists now separate sex from gender. That is, why they don't agree with defining a woman strictly on biology.
But those definitions remain complex. And in my experience, Stephen chooses to define woman situationally. And that's a bit of a problem.
Logical factors. But to wrap this episode up, when these debate me bros, who are usually beating up on teenagers, display their overwhelming self-satisfaction with their definition of woman that's parasitic on definitions of female and adult, it's not their lack of philosophical knowledge and introspection that pisses me off. No, that's fine. What pisses me off is their refusal to consider introspection.
I'm not going to use preferred pronouns. I'm going to use the pronouns that are accurate.
While the left certainly has its failures in reasoning and can be insufferably self-righteous, on this topic, it's the right that's philosophically misguided. Their insistence on a rigid, all-encompassing definition of woman reveals not only a lack of understanding of the complexities of empirical concepts, but also a glaring inconsistency in their approach to defining concepts. All right, now that we've nailed down the nature of definitions and the importance of having a consistent framework, we're all set to dive into the nitty-gritty in future episodes, starting with a breakdown of why the traditional definition of a woman being an adult human female isn't mainstream among philosophers and sociologists. So be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when this episode drops.
You know, do as you will. Please, I ain't playing the whole goddamn thing. You can watch it. You can watch it for yourself if you want. But bearing everything you've seen in mind, kindly have a look at this, which is kind of where he started a little. Ready? Steady?
Talking of obnoxious politics, here's a tool I've been using to get a better perspective on the perspectives of others. Ground News.
By the way, this tool is one of its sponsors for this video. So, which is fine. That's cool. I wish I had a sponsor because I had to refill prescriptions and I can't afford it. But anyway, I don't have 330,000 subscribers. But you roll, and this actually does look like a pretty good tool, but you need to know how to use it. Hold on.
News. One of the cool perks of this app is that you can search by topic. For instance, we can see that there's been 848 recent stories published on the entry of transgender, and we can
like probably within the last hour
see on the side a media bias breakdown, and, not surprisingly, the right has published more on this topic than has the left. But hey,
because it's their favorite hobby horse at the moment. And you know what, Stephen, you're helping them out here.
You probably already knew that, but it's always good to get confirmation. What you probably didn't know, however, are which stories are being covered disproportionately. You see, in addition to having a breakdown of each topic, Ground News provides insight on blind spots. So we can see that left sources are essentially ignoring the news of surgeons using a medical robot to crank out a higher volume of sex changes, whereas the...
Hi, folks. Any doctors in the house? Pardon me. I got a cough. Clear my throat. Maybe take a drink of gin. Hold on. Hold on. I'm serious about the cough, and the drink of gin, but hold on. Okay, I'm going to go back 5 seconds just so you can see this again for those of you in the back who didn't catch on about this story that is the first story that's being compared here. Come on now. All right. I need to see y'all in the chat. Hold on a sec. I go back a little bit.
These are being covered disproportionately. You see, in addition to having a breakdown of each topic, Ground News provides insight on blind spots. So we can see that left sources are essentially ignoring the news of surgeons using a medical robot to crank out a higher volume of sex changes, whereas
the left it has a blind spot in that they are ignoring this story about medical robots being used in surgeries. Because genital reconstructive surgery is, well, it's right, if we think about definitions as we spent a great deal of time worrying about on the balance of the stream here, beyond 8 minutes and 29 seconds in. The surgery in the 21st century, particularly since the mid 20 teens, as medical technology has improved, has seen the introduction of robots as surgical assistants in things from thoracic surgery, cardiac surgery, brain surgery, and genital reconstructive surgery is surgery. Gallbladders, yes, that's true. But thank you, Carrie Ann. All sorts of things. And why? I'll go back again here. Crank out high volume of
In the news of surgeons using a medical robot to crank out a higher volume of sex changes.
Okay. Crank out a high volume of sex changes. Okay. Let us refer to the American College of Surgeons. Let me see here. Bear with me. This is from 2020, the latest data I could find. And pardon me, I'm blind, so I'm going to put my glasses on. I won't share this tab, but you all can just sort of Google this. The American College of Plastic Surgeons, Plastic Surgery Statistics Report, 2020, Gender Confirmation Surgery. There are all sorts of terms for this. When I had mine, it was SRS, Sex Reassignment Surgery, which Stephen is apparently still down with. Sex changes. Well, it kind of is, but that's okay. And some people are cool with that, and I don't really have any big objection. I prefer the term genital reconstructive surgery because that's actually what it is. And many of the specialists that are involved in that field do genital reconstructive surgery for cis people. My surgeon, as a matter of fact, I asked him at my first interview with him, like, how the hell did you get into this? And he said, I was in the medical corps in the army in Korea, and I had to deal with my training was in plastic surgery, and I had to deal with a number of injuries to the groin. And I was, stunned and amazed at how that area of the human body has a capacity for healing. And so I made that my specialty. I was trying to figure out how it's like, well, you want to restore the physical appearance, the nerve sensation, and all of that sort of thing, because, that's part of human life. So this guy got his start in sex change operations by specializing in genital reconstructive surgery, GRS. That's the term I prefer. But anyway, to the point. In 2020, gender confirmation surgeries. 2020. Trans female patients. Genital. 1,231. Trans male patients, 1,100. So in 2020, a grand total of 2,331 trans people in the United States, that trans people in the United States had genital reconstruction surgery, gender confirmation surgery, SRS, a sex change, bottom surgery, etc., and so forth. 2,331, right? So let me just see what's that again, Stephen? Let me just I I want to be clear.
Stories are being covered disproportionately. You see, in addition to having a breakdown of each topic, Ground News provides insight on blind spots. So we can see that left sources are essentially ignoring the news of surgeons using a medical robot to crank out a higher volume.
To crank out a higher volume of
sex changes, whereas
sex changes. Stephen, again, I'm just gonna, if you're listening, if you really are listening, story on the left is a story about the use of robotics in surgery generally. Its framing is cranking out more sex changes. Do you not see how that framing is pejorative, especially considering that the numbers of such surgeries are very small? It's not the it's not the it's not the definition. It's the propaganda inside the definition. It's the not looking at the context of that statement. Gender clinic doctors use gender surgery robot, like thoracic surgery robots or gallbladder surgery robots or cardiac surgery robots. And robots are used in modern surgery. That's part of the drill, and it's a wonderful thing. But the shading of that is something. And the other thing is, I want you to look at what the comparison is here. The comparison is to a medical procedure and a political action to deprive transgender people of their ability to live in society. And by the way, this story came, the Duma voted today to enact. They didn't just move, but today, this very day, they enacted this legislation. And Stephen, to his credit, thinks it's a terrible thing. But you know what but here's the thing. He gives no time whatsoever. Spends no time at all questioning the framing of the first one, of this first story, the one on the left. But look at what he does with the one on the right.
the right are essentially ignoring Russia further restricting transgender rights. In fact, let's find out which rights specifically. Holy crap. They've just passed a bill that bans transitioning procedures, dissolves marriages, and prohibits transgender people from becoming foster or adoptive parents. Surely at least the libertarian right would have something to say about this egregious governmental oppression. No? Anyhow, you get the point. Ground News is an extremely insightful app.
Extremely insightful, so long as you go beneath. Nothing is gonna help you with your critical thinking here. You can't just sort of delve into the political side and ignore the obvious prejudice of that headline. And that headline affects directly 2,300 people. And the other headline affects tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. This is my problem with, I'll broaden it out. This is my problem generally with cis takes on this issue. People don't tend to evaluate the issues that transgender people actually face in their day-to-day lives at the proper scale. When you take improvements in surgical techniques that are delivered 2,300 times a year to patients that have gone through an arduous process of evaluation as to whether that surgery is appropriate for them, with physicians who are very, very careful and as recently as 25 years ago, in my case, was not covered by anybody's insurance unless you had a golden plan. 2,300 people in 2020, and maybe I'm sure it's probably more. When I had GRS, there were, I think, mentally, this is anecdotal, but mentally in North America, I think there were like six surgeons who were providing GRS. Johns Hopkins was a pioneer in it. They quit the clinic. They got out of the business, and a whole bunch of others. Stanley Biber in Colorado was a pioneer. Toby Meltzer, who's still around, pioneer, and other pioneers. Scottsdale in California. Gene Schrang in Wisconsin, and Menard in Montreal. Some of these clinics are still around, but there were very few and far between. And now I read, and I did in doing a little bit of research, I came across this. Jay called this to my attention this afternoon. I said, "Oh shit, no! Somebody's going to be stepping in it again, right?" There was a study of modern surgical techniques at some of the larger clinics, and they surveyed 17 in North America and Europe. 17 places. And the way people make it sound is that you go to the ER and have your Audi turned into an innie or vice versa. It's just not the fucking case. And we've got robots now that are taking care of the trans. It's like, Jesus Christ, bud. The proportionality is wrong. And when you're comparing the fate of trans people in an entire nation to a story about that, which isn't covered by the right, but which story is covered by the right? The use of surgical robots in genital reconstructive surgery. And those two things are equivalent. There's a lack of nuance here, people. There's just a huge lack of nuance. And while everything Stephen had to say about how do you define the definition of woman, he clearly answers his question in a rather clickbaity title for the video, which I don't blame him. That's how he got to 330,000 subscribers. Does Piers Morgan have the right definition of a woman? No, he does not. No, he does not. Ben Shapiro does not. He clearly debunks that and illustrates the epistemological fallacy that they trip into in trying to reach some sort of definition. And that as it happens, the definition they come up with is one that suits their own bigotry and prejudice, which is hardly any surprise. I mean, that goes on with regard to minority oppressed communities all the time. That's no surprise there. But when you just can't recognize the asymmetry, and you say, well, the left has a blind spot over this tiny little thing that affects tiny little people, and the right has a blind spot with regard to legislation that affects the population of an entire nation, I question your treating this subject with the seriousness it deserves, particularly when you emphasize, as you, to your credit, did at the beginning of your video, that what we are talking about here are individual humans and their medical care and their well-being, and ultimately the decision as to whose decision it is to make judgments as regards their well-being, medical care, where they sit in society, and all of this other stuff. So I'm hoping that if Stephen does see this video, which he won't, he'll think about that. Because for the most part, there was practically nothing else in here that touched on actual stories that show up in the press. But the fact that you'd use this as a on the one hand, robots are being used in 2,300 instances of GRS in the United States. And on the other hand, the Russian Federation has effectively banned trans people from life. Which again, that was voted on today and it passed, and And now it's illegal to be trans in the Russian Federation. So much for that trip to St. Petersburg. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Anybody want to come in here and chat? I'm happy to hang out and talk to people. But yeah. So those are my thoughts. I don't want to, the last time Stephen decided he was going to step into these issues, he really stepped in it. And that's okay. He starts out a part of the video that I didn't play was the very beginning, wherein he says it's not just one discussion. There are all sorts of nuances around trans lives. And no two trans people are going to have the same outlook, and no two cis people are going to have the same outlook. And all of these things are worth discussing. However, if we're going to discuss them, we need to discuss them with a sense of nuance. And yeah, Khaleesi, that's exactly right. 2 years of therapy and living as a woman full time led us to a test that you were ready for surgery, and then taking out a loan against your home to pay for the surgery. Yes. This isn't a casual thing, folks. In many countries in the world, you have to live full time before you can even get an appointment. I do as well, Khaleesi. I do as well. I mean, given the state of affairs right now, I wish everybody just shut the fuck up about trans people, because nobody talked about this on as broad a scale as is being talked about now. Some of the barriers to treatment, etc., were much higher 25 years ago. But the day-to-day of widely broadcast misunderstanding and not very nuanced conversation from large online personalities, large media corporations, large political organizations, all directed at a very, very tiny minority, makes it very difficult to wake up in the morning, I'll be honest. I mean, I don't want to be a trans rights advocate, activist. I don't think, some of the people I know, Art and Hart came out on Tackets the other day saying, this is the only place I do this, because I reserve this stuff for this. But my God, it's just, this shit comes out and it's just go, come on, man. Come on. Anyway, let me throw a stinking link in the chat here if anybody wants to pop in. Invite, copy. Yeah, I'll stick this thing in here and hang around. Anybody wants to jump in? Maybe I'll pin this fucking thing. Oops. Pin message. Pinned. All right, there it is. pin the message. I'm gonna riff on a little bit. What you see behind me is this is Casco Bay. Right over there, that's Shabig Island. Ooh, I got it. That's Shabig Island. That's I get all confused. That's Cousins Island. Over here, this is the Falmouth Shore. This is the area I sail in quite a bit. And yeah. Let's see. I don't really know if there's anything else I have to share, Steven. So, again, go ahead and watch his stream. I'm come on and tell me that. I'd love to hear your take, Maya. We apparently have a whole series from Rationality Rules to deal with, and hopefully, we'll see where he goes. I'm sure that we will disagree on issues of sports, because he did step in that ages back in the day, and that was that was the start of a huge kerfuffle. And that discussion is nuanced as hell too. And I'm capable of nuance. I'm afraid that many of my interlocutors that I've encountered are not quite so nuanced in their approach to the issue. So I think that one particular aspect depends on the sport, depends on a lot of things. But as the IOC put it in their framework, inclusion should be the default. Inclusion should be the default. And you need to have a damn good reason to exclude people. One that's based on peer-reviewed research, that doesn't come directly out of your ass, that doesn't compare men and women in sport, but compares women of all descriptions and men of all descriptions, and that includes people with differences of sexual development, includes trans people, trans men, trans women, non-binary people. And it's nuanced. And it also, I have to say, there seems to be an a priori assumption that there are no trans children, which is a pretty weird assumption, because I was a trans child in the 50s and 60s, and there was no understanding there for me, there for my family. And it's gotten much better. There aren't many of us. And that some people have listened. Caregivers have listened. Even Stephen has listened. I mean, trans people exist. He's willing to say that. I'm going to fade away for a moment. Fading. Fading back in. Sometimes I wish I could push that button and just fade away. I'll be honest. It gets harder and harder. Because no matter how well intentioned people's arguments are, it's just sometimes it's just no, that ain't the thing. No, that ain't the thing. And here you are pulling up some right wing headline about GRS and stuff. So stupid. Robots. There are robots operating on your children to trans them. No, that wasn't what was said, but I'll bet you that's what got heard by some people. Cranking out the sex changes, folks. Fucking crazy. So anyway, guess I could ramble on about sailing. I could ramble on about Casco Bay, these beautiful islands. They're all the calendar islands. This is Cape Elizabeth. That's Cape Small. This is Casco Bay. This is my home. That's my stomping grounds right there. And so if nobody wants to hop in and join me here, I think I'm going to call it a night. And thank you all for coming. Please like, share, subscribe, listen to Steven's stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments. I am happy to discuss any and all of this with all of you all. And yeah. And join my Patreon if you want to help me out a little bit. I'm kind of in dire straits right now. My old computer kicked the shit to bed. I had to get this thing. Spent altogether too much time setting it up, which has eaten into my productivity as a sailmaker. I am not a philosopher. I am not a medical doctor. I am a sailmaker. Simple. But I could use some help right now. So if anybody has the inclination, I think I'll put my links in the down below, and find me on the Twitters at Sidra. Find me on the Blue Sky at Sidra. Find me on the whatever. What is the new one? Threads. As Stephanie Helms. Find me here and there and everywhere. And again, thanks for coming, everybody. And I am gonna fade away. Bye.